The news broke from the Pentagon, but the full story is still developing. Pentagon officials say the partial remains of 9/11 victims were sent to a landfill to be buried after they could not be identified. Officials say the remains came from the destruction of the Pentagon and the site in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. The Defense Department acknowledged that a small amount of remains were incinerated and then dumped into a mortuary landfill. General John Abizaid commented from the Pentagon, where he said that the individual states' laws are not consistent in their definitions of a final resting place for human remains.
I understand how sensational the notion is. There was a point where people considered going to the crematorium, and in some states it's law, that is the final disposition of the fallen.
However, the oversight could not be ignored by some experts who believe that the mistreatment of the dead is a culture problem within the U.S. military.
To disrespect your own, that shows there is somewhat of a crisis within the Pentagon and the U.S. military in regarding respecting the dead.
It's the first time that the Pentagon has openly admitted that some remains of 9/11 victims were taken to the Dover Air Force Base mortuary and then later disposed of in a landfill. There have been other instances of mishandling at Arlington Cemetery when soldiers' remains were put into the wrong graves.
The U.S. military has to make sure it implements a policy to produce a culture of respect of dead people, regardless that they are part of the American armed forces or from the enemy's armed forces.
The practice of using the landfill ended in 2008, but officials agree that the practice should not have been initiated in the first place.
We don't think it should have happened. We think that our fallen deserve what they're getting now, which is the fallen remains are taken out to sea and they're buried at sea.
As more news emerges about the mishandling of 9/11 victims' remains, the full details may never be fully revealed. Authorities say they don't know how many victims were disposed of in this way. Records only go back to 2003, when the attack happened in 2001. Colin Campbell, Press TV, Washington.